videoing of me today for our website, because we obviously don't have enough stuff on YouTube yet, so I've been told to let him tape, so that's what that's about. So, for those of you that don't know who the Wild Rose Press is, we're a publishing company located up near Rochester, New York. Been in business for 12 and a half years. We started as romance only back in 2006, but in 2013 we opened to mainstream fiction. So we had a lot of our authors who wrote romance that also wrote women's fiction, and they really pushed us hard to take that. And I knew once we took women's fiction, it was going to open the doors to science fiction, historical fiction, erotica, and everything else. So that's why we changed it in 2013 and let everybody in. We also do some YA on a limited basis, but this fall, I keep saying fall, we're already into fall. This winter, we're going to be doing children's books. So Poppy's Publishing is going to be our children's picture book line. So we'll be taking submissions in the beginning of the new year for Poppy's Publishing. So today's presentation is going to be very interactive, as much as it can be. It's basically, where does the story start? So what I'm hoping to help you with is knowing how to start your story to catch not only an editor's eye, but also to keep your readers wanting to read more. And it's not a complicated workshop. It's nothing that's going to be mind-blowing. It's really a very simple process. When you pick up a book or you read a sample at Amazon, what makes you keep reading? That's what your book needs to do for readers and editors. We need to keep them reading, so we need to cut some of the boring, if you want to use that term, boring stuff. So what I have up here is some samples that I brought, and we're going to go through some of those. And then what I'd love is if anyone brought any examples of their own first pages that would be willing to share. I know Annette very graciously brought some that we can use, but if you brought some with you on your laptop or in print, that would be awesome. The first sentence of a book is a promise. It's a promise to your readers that you're going to give them a good, entertaining read that's going to keep their attention. It's a promise to an editor that you have created something that readers are going to want to buy. So the opening of your book is a promise. It's often said that a book shouldn't be judged by its cover, but what about its opening lines? The beginning of a book carries the daunting task of hooking the prospective reader in, and has a very brief window of time to do so. People's attention spans these days in particular get shorter and shorter and shorter. You know yourself that when you start to read something, if you're bored, you've already moved on, whether it's on the internet or whether it's in print, and you start to skim and you start to turn pages, and pretty soon you're done with it. But if you pick up a book that right away grabs you and holds you, then you're inclined to stay with it. Even if you only make it through the first chapter, if their first few lines grabbed you, at least they've gotten you that far. And for an editor, if you're trying to get it to an editor, that's what you need. You need to get them to stick with you long enough to get through a chapter or two to see if the book can hold up to the beginning. This is going to be real open, so if you have questions while I'm talking, just raise your hand and I'll be glad to stop and answer them. It's not a problem. I have the wonderful, I lost that word, but anyways, I got to judge a contest recently, and I had the most wonderful entry for an opening line across my desk, and I saved it. So hopefully or not, she's here. It wasn't a contest from New Jersey, it was somewhere else, but I'm gonna steal her first page or so to show you what a really good example of an opening that grabs a reader and grabs an editor. With any luck, Sheriff Melody Parker wouldn't get herself shot full of holes on her son Jesse's first birthday. Now tell me that's not an opening line that right away you want to know what's going to happen next. She crouched behind the left front fender of an old Chevy truck balanced on cinder blocks inside Marlon Dennison's barn. Powdery dirt beneath her feet smelled like mouse droppings and axle grease. The bulky ballistic vest pinched her ribcage. Far away in the Oklahoma summer night, men cursed and shouted, dogs barked. Radios spewed static, and close at hand, so close she could smell his sweat and fear, a cornered teenager with a nervous trigger finger waited for her to make a move. She shuddered in the cocoon of darkness, listening to the agonized screams of Charlie Haskins, "Officer down, officer down." From the highway off to the north, an approaching ambulance wailed, "Don't be too late," she prayed. "Don't let anybody die tonight. Not Charlie and not this mixed up kid, not on my watch." Now, I don't know about you, but I'm in that barn with her, and I can see it very vividly in my head, everything that's going on. This writer brilliantly brought in the smells, the fear, the emotions, and the anticipation of what's going to happen with this kid. I don't know anybody, unless you don't read suspense, that wouldn't want to turn that page. So hats off to this brilliant writer. I don't know who he or she is. As I said, it was a contest entry, and because this is going to be up on YouTube, if it is yours, thank you very much for allowing me to use it. But it's brilliant. I just loved it. Does anyone here not think it was grabbed you? Okay, good. I have another one that is from a different genre. This is a contemporary romance. And I'm just going to read you a couple little paragraphs to sort of show you another example of how we can grab a reader. This one was all action. It wasn't dialogue. It was action. It was her internal thoughts. This one jumps us right into dialogue. "We have to get married." Abigail Prestone's heart pounded in her chest as she stared at the muscular back in front of her. The pitchfork froze in midair, and she pressed her hand to her stomach to quell the nausea as her breakfast threatened to reappear. Even in this early morning, it was more than apparent by his sweat-stained shirt that Cole Pritchard had been hard at work for hours. The barn smelled of hay and animals, and her nose twitched. She only hoped to get out of here before she broke out in hives and started sneezing like crazy. She'd never been to the Pritchard ranch before, and certainly wouldn't have come to the barn if she had. It was so large. It made her feel even more vulnerable. Cole stabbed the tool into a pile of hay and turned to face her. That's one way to say good morning. One eyebrow rose as he yanked off first one brown leather work glove and then the other. With his shoulder propped against the barn wall, his arms folded across his chest, he pinned her with a steady stare. Abigail's stomach dipped and swirled as if she was on a roller coaster. When Cole looked at her with those piercing blue eyes, she couldn't think straight. That was how she ended up in this predicament. Lifting her chin, she struggled to keep her voice steady. There have been consequences to our actions from an evening we would both prefer to forget. She cringed. Had she really said that? She sounded like an uptight bitch. Actually, maybe that's good. Better than letting him even suspect what she really wanted to do, burst into tears and fling herself into his arms. She had to keep her defenses up. This man was her weakness, and just like chocolate, apparently both were bad for her waistline. You like that? So that's a romance. One thing that I'm not crazy about is in the beginning, I kind of don't know if it's historical or contemporary without having read the back cover. As we get into the story, we find out it is contemporary, but the opening line, "We have to get married."
I thought it was historical when it first started.
Because most nowadays, most people, we don't have that. So it's a unique twist. In the 80s and the 70s, romances were a lot of marriages of convenience, marriages because there was a baby. You don't see it as much now. But for an author to be able to make contemporary, make it fresh and new, is going to be interesting to see if she can sell us on that idea of why they would have to get married when it's 2018. But I love the opening line, "We have to get married," because right away you want to know who's talking, you want to know who these people are. We get a real good impression of the two of them being very different. Obviously he's a rancher and cowboy, and she's apparently not used to any of that. So I want to know how all that came about. So as an editor, I'm going to keep reading, because now I'm drawn in to these characters, and I want to know what's going on. So I think that there's many good ways to start a story. I like dialogue. I like to be thrown into a scene as if I drop from the ceiling and I'm watching it unfold. I like to see what's happening. Much like our sheriff, we're dumped into that scene. We're not in the police car riding to the barn. We're not getting the call at the station and watching her put on her vest. We're right there. So all of that other stuff, we didn't need it. We didn't need to watch her get in the car or get her vest on. All we needed to do was be there with the trigger finger teenager, right? So sometimes when you're writing, we as authors, we as writers want to tell the reader too much stuff. We think that they need to know that the 9/11 call came in, that there's an officer down, that all this other stuff happened, and then she has to rush to the scene. Whereas we really didn't. And just like with Abigail and Cole, we didn't have to be there the night of their romance. We know, because she's telling us, that they had something. Obviously they're not a couple. It's not that she's coming to him after the fact. So we know that they had sex. We don't know anything else about it, but we didn't need to be there for that. Does that make sense? So I like it when you dump somebody right into a scene and just let them through the way the scene unfolds, figure out what's going on. You don't need to give your reader everything up front. You don't need to give them all that backstory. Does all that make sense? Did anybody else bring pages that they want to, can I try them? You're a brave lady. I promise, it's all love.
That's awesome.
Okay, I'm not gonna read all of this, just to let you know. I'm gonna read the beginning, okay? All right, I'll read till I get to a good stopping point, and then we're gonna critique it, but it'll all be kind, I promise, I promise. Perhaps meeting in a public place wasn't my best idea. I want to rage, to scream, to throw things, flip the table and kick my chair. But instead, I watch as my fingers grip the coffee mug until my knuckles turn white. My eyes zero in on the cracked black nail polish on my thumb. My mind wanders, trying to remember when I last did my nails. But there's no escaping, I'm here. I came in to meet him and hear what he has to say of my own free will. Avoiding looking into his eyes, into a face so much like my own, won't make meeting my father for the first time any easier. So that's the first paragraph. And I kind of like that, because when you said looking into a face so much my own and meeting my father for the first time, you drew me in. So maybe there's a little bit too much detail here. We could cut some of that with the rage and the scream and flipping of the table. You could cut that back a little bit. But I like that she's picking at her nail polish. We've all done that. We like that she's nervous about who she's meeting, and then you right away tell us that she's never met him before. So now we kind of want to know, why hasn't she met him before? Who is he? Is he somebody scary? How old is she? So all of these questions, it's good. I like that you didn't give us any backstory. I like that you took us right into the scene. So I think that's very good. Good job. And Nat, you want to be brave?
Sure. How many do you just want the first one?
I'm just going to do the first page, so I get to a good stopping
It's a
point.
good thing you say you like dialogue.
Alrighty. Dreams weren't supposed to hurt, so why was my head throbbing in time to her heartbeat? Felissa groaned, laying a hand on her temple while she desperately tried to open her eyes. Her fingers brushed over a large lump and she drew in a sharp breath. That explained the pounding in her brain. Stop moving around, a deep voice commanded. You've got a good-sized bump and more than likely a mild concussion. Gingerly turning her head, Felicina managed to open one eye a crack. A man sat in a chair near her bed, but not too close. His finger was tucked in between the pages of a paperback as it lay in his lap. He was dressed simply, just a plain pullover shirt and jeans. Who are you? Her voice came out as a croak, and she rubbed her throat, trying to ease the soreness. What happened to me? My name's Martin Long. There's a glass of water on the table next to you. It should help ease your throat. You told me not to move. Should I get the water or shouldn't I? He shrugged. Depends. How's your head? Propping herself up in one arm, she sipped the water, sighing. When it soothed the burning of her throat, it would probably be a few days before the pain was gone. My head hurts badly. I ask you again, what's happened to me? Okay, Nat, I'm going to be really rough here.
Okay.
First of all,
she's allowed.
Felicina is a nice name, but you saw how I stumbled. When I stumbled, it pulled me out of the story. So a lot of times when we write characters that we love the name, you have to think about your reader, and are they going to get stumbled on that name? Now, obviously you like the name, so I won't tell you to change it, but as an editor, I would be like, okay, that's kind of a mouthful. All right, that's one. Dreams weren't supposed to hurt. I guess I don't get that right away. Her head's throbbing. I got that. You've said that several times. I just think I would like to know a little bit more faster. It kind of felt
Okay.
like it was taking a long time
Well,
to
this is a
get.
rough draft, so.
Well, that's okay, that's okay.
But now I know how to fix it.
Right, and this is all with kindness. So as I'm reading, I would like things to just move up a little bit more. I'd like
Okay.
to know a little bit more about why she's been hurt, who he is, how he thinks she has a concussion, you know, that kind of stuff. But it's not bad, not a bad beginning,
Thank you.
okay? So what happened to her? She did have a head with her,
Oh, she was attacked.
she was attacked, okay.
And she got her head slammed into the wall several times and it knocked her out.
Okay,
And then he found her, well, him and his partner found her because he can't touch people because his power lets him see how they're going to die.
okay, so how could we have started, I mean, what if we started at the attack? Would that make more sense?
I had tried that and it just seemed like it was just taking too
Okay.
much time. But I could probably like have her wake up and remember the attack and then, you know, mention it.
What do you guys think? Anybody have an opinion on that? Would you rather have seen that start at the attack or start in the bed?
I have my pen, I can make
Yeah,
notes.
I think so, because even though what I
Yeah.
said before about no backstory, I think in this case, having the attack and then maybe flashing forward, maybe that would work better. What's everybody think? Don't
I
be
like it.
shy, we're all friends here.
I think the attack would have more impact.
Would have more impact to start it, and the reader would be drawn in faster.
Okay.
But I think you don't need it, you could have him say, I didn't hear exactly the explanation, but if you just added, after he says, you know, don't move around too much, you got a pretty big bump,
You
you
got
got,
attacked.
you got your head slammed against the wall
Okay.
pretty good,
That would be good too,
and
yeah.
then, you know.
Right, so
or
instead of
some-
showing the attack, have him just a couple sentences.
Couple sentences, just tell us what happened.
Whose POV is it supposed to be?
I think it's in her view.
It's in her POV.
If I me, and I'm not telling you what to do, it's your book, I would say something along the lines. The last thing I remember before lights went out was my head being jammed against the wall.
Keep talking, I'm taking notes.
You know, so start something like that, now where she's show her fear and,
Yeah.
and the pain, you know, fear, it shouldn't be just pain. I don't know, I'm just.
Yeah, no, it's all good stuff.
It's good stuff, yeah.
In the back?
Is there, anything from his point of view? Because it seems to me it'd be interesting when he discovers this unconscious woman who's just been attacked, you said he can't touch
I think
her or
I
help
think
her.
I think I do that later.
Okay.
But yeah, I switch POVs a lot in my books because I love telling everything from multiple points of view. I've tried just doing one point of view and it was horrible and I'm going to burn that.
Did anyone else bring pages to work on? Can I see yours? Thank you. Oops, I just clicked the button because I'm an idiot. Can you unclick me? I know. That'll be on YouTube, that'll be beautiful. All right, I've got my contacts in, which one? Screw 22, hindsight is a bitch. It slams me into clarity so crystal clear my feet root to the floor as it catalogs every single piece of advice I dismissed. Every gut check I passed off as ridiculous and every stupid sign I ignored that led to this moment. Like when I started dating Jeremy, a cute, slightly older guy I swiped right on, and my parents gave me side-eye about online dating, especially when he lived in another state, but said he loved me and respected my ability to make my own decisions. Now we all know this is going nowhere fast, right? Or when my BFF Maggie told me not to marry that prissy asshole when he proposed last year. It was easy to see why. She didn't want to lose her roommate and have to move back in with her parents, or find a new one who would tolerate her eccentricity. I can't say that. Thank you. I told her I loved her and no prissy asshole would ever replace her. She flipped me off and hugged me. All right, so I like your opening line, screw 2020, hindsight is a bitch. I like that. But then I think you go on a little bit long. I think that at this point I'm already starting to sweep down to see where we're going with this. But I'll keep going. Or when I finally moved in with him, changing my job and entire life, and he asked me not to come home for lunch so he could sleep during the day. He worked nights, It made sense, right? I found a cute little cafe to hang out instead. The food tasted better than I can make myself anyway. Or for the newest example, when I came back a day early, unannounced, from visiting my parents and found my fiance with his dick down the throat of a blonde that would be carded to buy lottery tickets. So that's why you always wanted me to text you when I was 30 minutes away. The pounding pop music drowns out my words, but Phoebe's shrill bark cuts right through the noise. The miniature poodle growls in my arms and barks again. Okay, I think you've got a good start, but you're getting really bogged down in a lot of stuff. So if her story is starting after she caught her fiance cheating, then we kind of don't need all of this. This is just putting words on a page for effect, but it's not interesting us. So I think that is her life starting over now that she's dumped Jeremy? So we kind of want to start with that. I like your first line, but I just don't think we need all this backstory. This is all backstory. This is telling us that she met him online against her parents' wishes, against her roommate, and all these things led up to him cheating, and now she's realizing that she should listen to all of them, right? So a lot of this is backstory that I would kill. Does anyone else want to comment on this?
I think it's a little hard to follow, but I like the tone. I like the first person.
I like her
I
voice.
Like the tone. I like the voice a
The
lot.
voice is very good. I
Yes.
think we've got a snarky,
Yeah.
a little bit cynical now girl, and I think we're good with that. But I think that we need to move past this. We can bring all this into conversation. That's the best way to get backstory out there. So if she's moved on and are we gonna flash forward to her, what's
Yeah.
happening next?
The scene continues and it kind of just picks up from there, because she's just
Okay.
gotta figure out what she's doing.
So
Okay.
why didn't she start with, so this is why Yoga wanted me to text
Right.
I
you
like
30
that,
minutes
I
after
like that. That's a perfect opening
And
too.
then doing like, as, you know,
Yeah,
you know.
20,
she-
hindsight is a bitch.
Right, I mean, as
Yeah.
she walked in on his,
Yeah.
on her fiance with his dick down the
Yeah.
throat of a blonde.
Yeah.
Something,
Those are
whatever.
great, catchy phrases to grab a reader, because then they're gonna wanna know. So we didn't need to know about the parents and the swipe right and the girlfriend, we didn't need to know all that.
Put that in after.
Yep, we can bring all that in later, because then you know the parents are gonna say, I told you so, because I would. But very brave, thank you for sharing that with us, good job. You do have some good lines in there, thank you. Make sure too that you're not just using words to get a reaction out of your reader, and I don't mean that in a negative, but sometimes we use too much salt in a recipe. If you use too many of those really good phrases like hindsight is a bitch and the blonde and all of that, you don't want it to be so much that it's overkill. A little bit of that kind of stuff goes a long way. Do you know what I'm saying? Otherwise it just it doesn't have the same effect because you've used it too much. Anybody else bring pages?
Can you read off my cell phone?
I will do my best. I knew I should have worn my glasses for this. Thank you so much. Okay. The fat man crossed off the curb with an open book, reading light clamped to the binding, and he smirked at the driver of the onrushing vehicle. This sounds like New York City last week. The driver's eyes widened, clouds blocked the moon, street lamps glowed dim, and Pierce Romano swerved the rusted Volkswagen Bug, thank you, Volkswagen Bug to avoid a collision. Pierce never saw the woman until she struck the hood and bounced 30 feet. She hit the pavement and rolled, stopping face up, unconscious, probably dead. Queasiness accelerated from Pierce's stomach in all directions. He slammed the brakes. The VW sputtered and stalled. Pierce staggered from the car. The fat man disappeared. The dead woman didn't move. Blood trickled from the corners of her mouth. Maybe he should resuscitate her with CPR. It always worked on TV. Of course, those people knew CPR. I like it. What I'm trying to see here, at first I thought the narrator was the fat man for some reason. So it took me a little bit longer to realize Pierce was the driver, but that's okay. I would just have to, that was just me because I'm reading out loud probably. I think you've got some good imagery here. I think it's really, it's powerful. I want to know, he assumes she's dead. I guess I don't have enough feeling. I'm not feeling it enough. If he thinks he just killed this woman, I just would think there'd be more of an emotional impact instead of just these words. Does that make sense? I think, you've got a great beginning. I like that. I like what you said about the TV and the CPR people. That was a good line. I like the imagery of the fat man reading the book because let me tell you, we just came from New York City And those pedestrians, holy cow, they don't know how to cross the street. The phones and the baby carriages kill me. They're on the phone with the baby carriage crossing, I digress. Anyways, I think this was good. Does anyone else wanna offer an opinion on this one? Thank you.
I think that maybe I had a hard time the first two sentences figuring out, are we the fat man, are we the woman
Yes.
crossing the street
Okay.
with the light? But I think that the sentence of, and then it says he didn't see, or before he struck her, but it sounds like they saw them because we see them.
We see them.
So I think starting with the, that's horrible, but starting with
I think that you're right. I
strike.
think that if you started this where he hits her, instead of the
Yeah, just
imagery
drop those first
around,
two sentences.
then that might pull us in faster, because I did have the same problem with the fat man. I was drawn to that image and didn't realize that didn't really matter. Or it might in the story, but in the first opening, it didn't matter to me. It mattered that he hit her. So, I think that was the more important thing. If you could somehow open with that. And more emotion, more gut, like we had from our sheriff, where we felt her fear, we felt what was going on. You've gotta make us as readers and editors feel that. How would you feel if you hit this woman? You gotta bring that out to make us feel it. I thank you for the glasses. I got my contacts in, so that would just not work. I appreciate it. What other questions can I answer for you guys? Is there something you wanna know is just burning inside you?
You started off by saying there are two ways to start. One was dialogue. What was it? Did you say the second way?
Action, like our sheriff. So with our sheriff, there was no dialogue, it was more her internal thoughts, but it jumped us right into the scene. So one of the things that if you're writing, think about if you suddenly walked into someone's kitchen and there's two characters talking and you walked in the middle of it. That's kind of a great way to start a story, not necessarily the kitchen and the characters, but you walk into a scene and it starts. You don't know what happened before, you don't know what's gonna happen after, you only know what's happening right now, and you don't always even know everything. Like, we don't know who this crazy kid is that she's got an itchy trigger finger. We don't know who Abigail and Cole are. You know, we've just been dumped into this scene, these two scenes, one with dialogue and one without. The thing with dialogue, when you're opening a book, you wanna make sure you're not doing a play. You don't want it to be all dialogue. You have to balance it with a bit of description like she did with the barn and the setting and the hay fever. We got an idea of where she was and what was going on with the characters. There was a good balance of the two. What other questions can I answer on this?